I don't know, living in Tuscany and having lemons or limes rather, not having oranges out of my orchard or peaches, and then it. First of all, my biological terrain itself, 200 years ago, would be that much cleaner. The air, the soil, all these factors are producing something. The fruits of the elements are producing something so much cleaner. And at that point, they would have been far less hybridized than they are today. So today, what you're basically eating when you're eating fruit is starch and sugar. So I don't want to eat starch and sugar because I know that that's going to be the harbinger of entropic demise, which I'm just not interested in. If you don't know that about me by now, then you should. That's what this has all been about. So entropic demise on any level, that's what we are preventing against. We're doing something that is about generating life. And in order to generate life, you need to close up the holes in your boat that are, just wasting it, and that's siphoning off. That anywhere there's vampirical energy, that's the anti-energetic drains. We've talked about this over and over again. And so in that way, fruit has an anti-energetic effect on the body. Now, having said that, I've spoken also a lot about what I like to call the yeast monster. And if you've been feeding a yeast monster 100 grams of sugar a day, and suddenly you're feeding him 50 grams of sugar, he's going to become less powerful, which means you're going to become more powerful over him. So it's not to say that there isn't a place for it in the transition. It's just to say that it's not a health generator, and that we need to stop looking at it as a health generator. Anything that is going to feed the anti-energetic, microscopic anti-energetic organisms in the body or contribute to fermentation is an anti-energetic substance. So that's why I don't go anywhere near fruit. Now, if you're transitioning and you really want to have some fruit, then you have the low sugar fruits. You make sure to combine them properly, never have them with anything else, empty stomach. The food order is very important. But as you progress, you start to see that what is called fruit, it's like what is called fish. It may actually be cornfish. What's called fruit, it's got the same name, but it has a totally different biomass. See? So that's why I don't eat fruit. And people can't even tell you the number of questions that come in about, was it the 80-10-10 diet, and people thriving on fruit. Great, that's great. I've never had that experience, and I can only speak from experience and from my clients' experiences. I see the opposite to be true. When it's green-centric and starches and sugars are eliminated, all kinds of starches and sugars, I see great results. But it's also the tissue cleansing. Are there lots of eliminations? There's so many different factors. What's the lineage? So many factors. Where is the fruit coming from? There are, like I said, over and over again, lots of factors. But generally speaking, fruits, nuts, these foods are all contaminated. They're not what they were. Their biomass is not what it is supposed to be. It's not what it is. If you look up in the dictionary, it's not the same thing. The solution, there are several, but I'm going to list them one by one. And they're all things that you may or may not want to hear. Okay. The first one most people don't like to hear, which is eat less. Okay, because not for the reasons that you might think immediately, for those reasons too, but if you eat less, there's less contamination. You're consuming fewer PCBs. You have less environmental estrogens coming into your body. It's not about eat less because it's less calorically, or it's less contamination, period. Okay. Also, people's lives tend to revolve way too much around food, and that's when you know that your joy isn't coming from within. And I understand this because I've been there. And I've also, the more unsatisfied you are with your life, the more you turn to food it could be anything that satisfies you externally, but for most people it's food, because you consume food all day long. And when you have something yummy on the palate, you just, you go into a zone. You really kind of forget your worries for that time. That's why, you have the breakup and you pull out the Haagen-Dazs, or most people eat mindlessly because they get into a zone when something's on their palate and their brain is being activated by it, and there's this pleasure sensory response, and there's this zone. But if you're actually dealing with your life and you're taking responsibility for your life and you're opening your vessel up and you have more conductivity and flow, then you have a lot more creativity, and your life is going to be less about food and more about that creativity, that flow, that growth, that clarity. Okay, so less addiction and less clinging to erroneous ideologies.